Has our culture hit a dead end? In music, movies, art, video games and entertainment, do we see innovation, daring and novelty? Or do we see mediocre drivel, alongside repackaged facsimiles of the past? Now, before you accuse me of being an "everything in my day was better" boomer, hear me out. In pop music, it's never been a better time to be dead. From Roy Orbison to Frank Zappa to Tupac to Amy Winehouse, holographic tours are the big new money spinner in the music industry.
This is the same exact hologram that appeared at Coachella in 2012. And remember back then how controversial this was? People didn't know how to feel about resurrecting Tupac and him actually performing at Coachella. So Hologram USA, it's the world's first dedicated hologram theater.
Billie Holiday performs 7 days a week at the Hologram USA Theater in Los Angeles. Long dead icons can continue to tour the world as plug-and-play projections forevermore. Artists who have retired can continue to tour the world without having to physically tour the world. Prince once called holographic projections of dead stars the most demonic thing imaginable, before his hologram projection appeared with Justin Timberlake at last year's Super Bowl halftime show. According to Jeff Pezzutti of hologram company iLusion, it's the way the music industry will head. Does the growth in demand for holographic performances suggest that the music industry has hit a creative brick wall, and that more and more people prefer nostalgia over new music? The nostalgia fetish that seems to have gripped society manifests itself in some very odd ways, such as the monumental denial industry that surrounds Michael Jackson, who is still ferociously defended by a loyal army of fans, despite the fact that he's almost certainly a pedo. Or those who clamour for 60s, 70s and 80s classics just Philistines stuck in the past. Well, no. Research shows that they just appear to have good taste. A 2012 study by the Spanish National Research Council found that music has been getting worse every year. They analysed nearly 500,000 songs stretching back 50 years, and the results were clear. In virtually every metric, from the timbral palette to pitch transitions, the way notes are used, the variety of intervals, and the difference between one melody and another, as we moved into the 21st century, every one of these metrics diminished, meaning everything began to sound the same. Music being overproduced in an effort to make it artificially louder also served to drown out the unique sounds of individual instruments, melodies and vocals. Meanwhile, music in general has become so generic that artificial intelligence can now predict how popular a song is likely to be long before it's even released. Computers in laboratories have been writing entire albums for years. The modern pop song has become so samey that actual humans are no longer required to make it. Speaking on the subject of modern music, Madonna said, "Everything's so formulaic and everyone sounds the same." And that's because, as scientific studies have proven, pop music has become completely homogenous, because listeners have been trained, or more accurately, indoctrinated, to be addicted to the most simplistic, repetitive beats and hooks. Lyrics have also been noticeably dumbed down over the past 20 years, to the point where much of what comes out of a singer's mouth now is mumbling gibberish. There's no commercial motivation to offer variety and complexity, only glib monotony.
Because music appears to be dying and people have found other things to do, I think the major labels just want to grab as much as they can as quickly as possible, so therefore they just watch those horrible talent show things with those small children and they sign them and they make quick money.
Like never before, our culture rewards mediocrity while actively shunning novel creative endeavour. You also see this fixation with nostalgia and recycling old concepts in television.
Netflix will keep Friends through next year in $100 million
They're paying $100 million, right? For 1 year of Friends, and then The Office too.
You know what that is though? That's like nostalgia.
Nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
So all viewing right now is nostalgia. If you look at TV, right? What did great this past years in TV, right? The OJ trial on FX. What is that? I remember how I was when the OJ thing came out.
Again, nothing new, nothing different, nothing bold. Just the same repackaged stories. It's a dead end. You also see this in movies. Everything is a prequel or a sequel. Since Disney acquired the Star Wars franchise, They're not even trying anymore. As Philip Bates writes, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars was special. Now it's just another cinematic series that will be exploited for all it's worth. When a film is considered good because it's the latest installment in a franchise, its individual narrative has failed. And how many fucking superhero movies is too many? Why bother creating new ideas and new storylines when you can just continue to cash in on the same old tired brand? In order to satisfy 1 billion Chinese customers who will hand over the cash and swallow anything without demanding any cinematic nuance or sophistication, because foreign box office takings easily outweigh domestic.
And why is it? Because movies got so expensive to make, you couldn't take risks on stories that we didn't already know about.
Yeah.
So right now, the only movies we see are either big budget that have a built-in audience or $3 million comedy.
But that movie you just talked about is only being made for the global
Right.
audience. And you see it like all over the place. I mean, I saw the Mamma Mia sequel, Here We Go Again, and I couldn't believe how much attention had been paid to the global needs of the box office in terms of a kind of bland, inoffensive cleanliness in terms, and also a kind of borderline dumbness of where anybody in any language can understand exactly what's going on in every scene because of the facial expressions of the characters. And I'm sure, I mean, since 70% of the global audience is not going to be seeing this movie in their language, that's kind of what the demands are. And that's true for all the Marvel movies as well. And so what you've lost is a kind of idiom, and an idiosyncratic American idiom is gone.
Modern movies are also over-reliant on CGI. Scientifically, the way the human brain processes these visuals, heightening their inauthenticity, leaves you cognitively unconcerned about the events on screen. That's why blockbusters just don't seem to have the same lasting impact on cinemagoers that they used to. You forget about them almost instantly, whereas older movies that weren't over-reliant on CGI resonated with you for far longer.
Let's take a look at Jurassic Park versus Jurassic World. Which of these feels more real to you? I saw both in IMAX, and yet the effects in the original, now 20 years old, give me chills, while the newer films with better technology often look less realistic.
An identical color palette, the orange and teal effect, is now also being added to most movies in post-production. As Joe Ellison writes, in short, films are literally all beginning to look the same. Same aesthetic, same overproduction, same tried and tested script. The primary objective behind movie plots is no longer focused on making you actually care about the characters in the movie. It seems to be far more important to ensure that as many of those characters are as diverse as possible. And you see the same phenomenon taking place in highbrow culture. As Sohrab Ahmari documents in his excellent book The New Philistines, many modern theatre productions are not predicated around the quality of acting, direction or aesthetic. They're predicated on crowbarring woke progressive themes into classics, ruining them in the process. In many cases, they don't even bother dressing up in period costume anymore to suit the role. Actors are running around in trainers and hoodies for plays set in the 1800s. But so long as enough of those actors are not white, or, God forbid, white men, that's all that matters. Political correctness reigns supreme. Look at literature. Authors are now being forced by publishers to sign morality clauses which dictate that their contracts can be cancelled if there is sustained, widespread public condemnation of the author. In other words, if a novelist dares transgress the latest iteration of what is considered acceptable opinion amongst baying sanctimonious Twitter outrage mobs, their months or years of hard work can figuratively be torn up and incinerated. This stifles experimentation and again forces the author to strangle their own creative impulse out of fear in order to play it safe. And what does playing it safe produce, apart from the bland tedium that went before? As Lionel Shriver explains, writers who sign contracts with morality clauses would naturally shy from expressing views that depart from the dominant political orthodoxy, lest whole manuscripts be rejected and their advances be withdrawn. Celebrities behave like Stepford wives for the same reason. They're all terrified of saying something that might offend someone, so they all sound exactly alike. And modern art? Don't get me started on modern art. Go watch the 5 videos I already did on the subject. When it comes to abandoning the art form of intricate narrative, you could make the same argument for video games. Although graphically they're more impressive than ever, little effort whatsoever is being put into story modes anymore. Many video games are now just an excuse to turn kids into gambling addicts through the overuse of microtransactions. Given that music seems to have exhausted itself in terms of new styles and movements, it's no surprise that countercultural fashion trends have also seemingly come to a dead end. The most recent manifestation, hipsterdom, has now become so conformist, with the hipster uniform becoming so homogenous, that one hipster tried to sue a publication for using his photo without permission, only for it to turn out that the photo was of an identical looking but completely different person. As Douglas Haddow writes in his widely cited piece, Hipsters, the Dead End of Western Civilization, we've reached a point in our civilization where counterculture has mutated into a self-obsessed aesthetic vacuum. So while hipsterdom is the end product of all prior countercultures, it's been stripped of its subversion and originality and is leaving a generation pointlessly obsessing over fashion and faux individuality.
How do you feel knowing that when people see you on video that they're gonna hate you before you can even say anything?
Our culture has become so recycled and so regurgitated that everything is post-ironic and self-referential. Dominant online culture is now mainly just reaction videos, because there's nothing proper to sink our teeth into culturally anymore. That's why TikTok is such a popular app with Zoomers.
Hit or miss, I guess they never miss, huh?
They're growing up in a dead civilization, and the only fun they can have is in mocking it. But you could also make the argument that internet trolling and meme culture is the only authentic counterculture that we have left, with PewDiePie representing one of the few true remaining countercultural figures on the planet. And because the establishment doesn't have any real means of controlling that counterculture, look how it treats it, by demonizing it as the domain of fringe extremists, racists, and terrorists. So in every field, from music to movies to literature to fashion, everything feels like it's become a stale, repetitive, drab malaise. There is no authentic counterculture in any of these genres. And I'm not saying that there won't be new countercultural movements in the future, or a renaissance that we're crying out for, but at least for the time being, we appear to have hit a cultural dead end.
And so obviously it's hard in modern life because there's no poetry in modern life.
Our appetite for the novel and the avant-garde has been drained. Everything is just focus group tested, algorithm compliant, corporate dross designed to appeal to the vast generic mainstream. Our culture is being diluted to meet the demands of deranged NPC thought police and drugged up, listless, pacified consumers. As Theodore Dalrymple writes, the dreary are inheriting the earth. Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.